How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Chof, Daf 20 of Masechta Shevuos. Friends, who can tell me what's cool about Daf 20 of Masechta Shevuos? What's cool about Daf 20 of Masechta Shevuos is that it's the first Daf of Masechta Shevuos, kind of. The first Daf of the third parak of Masechta Shevuos is when we actually start talking about Shevuos. There are going to be similarities. I'm sure many people will be reminded of the fun times we had learning Masechta Nedarim, maybe even a shtickle Masechta Nazir. That was maybe already like 2 years ago or something. I think I was learning Masechta Nedarim. Oh boy, 2.5 years ago already. Yeah, I think like 2.5 years ago already. We're learning Masechta Nedarim. It was a while ago, Masechta Nedarim. Anyways, so, yeah, whatever, yeah, well, let's jump in. Okay. Yud Tes Amud Beis at the beginning of the third Perek Shevuos 2 Shein Arba. Oh. So, throwback to the first daf of the Masechta, Shevuos 2 Shein Arba. We then took a 2-perek detour to discuss Yediyah Satuma 2 Shein Arba. We are now getting back to Shevuos 2 Shein Arba. Shevuos she'oichal v'sheloi oichal she'achati v'shelo achalti. So, Shevuos she'ochal, that I will eat. So, for example, I think when we're learning Masechta Nedarim, I think we're using pizza. 2.5 years later, salad. We're healthier now. Salad. Shvuah that he's going to eat salad. Shvuah that he's not going to eat salad. Shvuah that he did eat salad. Shvuah that he didn't eat salad. Those are, right? Because the pasuk says, lehara or lehetiv, which is future tense. So lehara would be, I will not eat salad. Or we can use green eggs and ham. I will not eat green eggs and ham. Is that the same thing as Sam I am? Or is that a different sefer? Chever, salad. So lehara is I won't eat salad. Lehetiv is I will eat salad. And then we learned in the beginning of the Masechta, Takas Machlekes Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Akiva. Taka Rabbi Akiva includes also past tense, I didn't eat salad, I did eat salad. If he accidentally violates that shvuah, so then there will be a korban olav yored. Okay, so ochal v'shelo ochal, I will eat, I won't eat. I'm sorry. Where am I? Shochal v'shelo ochal, she'achati v'shelo achati, that I did eat, that I didn't eat. Those are the 4 permutations. Shvuah sheloi oichal ve'ochal kolshu chayv d'Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva says that if he says that shvuah that he will not eat salad, and he eats even one leaf. So he says shvuah shelo chav, he makes a shvuah that he won't eat. Ve'achal kolshu, and he eats even a shtickle, a tiny shtickle. Chayv is already chayv to Rabbi Akiva. That is Rabbi Akiva's opinion. Amru loi, Rabbi Akiva, they said to Rabbi Akiva, heichon matzinu be'achal kolshu shu chayv sheze chayv. They said to Rabbi Akiva, I don't understand. Where do we ever see by achila that it's a kolshu? It's usually a kazayas, there's some kind of a shear. A kolshu? Why would it be chayiv for just any amount? Omar loim, Rabbi Akiva responds to his challengers. There's an exceptional case. Where? Give me an example. And the Gemara is going to suggest examples, not today, but excuse me, sorry about, I think maybe in 2 days. But anyways, Rabbi Akiva says, where do we ever have that based on when you say something, all of a sudden you have to bring a korban? This is a unique scenario that you say, I'm not going to eat salad, and all of a sudden you're bringing a korban. So it's a unique scenario. So just like the whole concept is unique, so also the shear is unique. Any amount, if you say, I'm not going to eat salad, even eating one leaf, you're already going to be chayav a korban olav yard. Frag de Gemara, lemeima de she'ochal de achilna mashma. Frag de Gemara. we're assuming that when we say Shevuos Shtam Shenarba Shevuos She'ochal, that I will eat, so we're assuming that it means that I will eat, not that I won't eat. Sorry for the double negative. So so this is to imply that when it says she'ochal, it means that I will eat. But we have a contradiction. Shvuah lo, this is already going to start sounding like Nidarim, I think. Shvuah lo ochal lecha. I'm making a shvuah that I won't eat anything from you. Now, what's the difference between a neder and a shvuah? I can't tell you 1,000% that I'll get this right, but I think generally speaking, generally speaking in broad strokes, the difference between a neder and a shvuah is that a shvuah focuses on what you will or won't do, okay? Whereas a neder, that's a shvuah. A neder focuses on what is usr, okay? So for example, if I say salad is usr to me, i.e. I won't eat salad, but I don't say that. I say salad is usr to me, that is a neder. And if I then eat salad, I violated the neder because I wasn't allowed to get any anah from salad, and I got anah from salad. I said salad was usr to me. I violated it by the neder by eating it. So that's a neder. I said salad is usr to me. If I say I'm never going to eat salad again, okay, be careful there, buddy. It's important to eat salad. Akoponim. How do you define salad? There's lots of different salads. Akoponim. So if you say I'm never going to eat salad again, right? The focus is on eating it. I'm never going to eat salad again. That would be a shvuah. Okay. So if he says, so v'amini shvuah lo ochal licha, I'm making a shvuah that I will not eat from you. Shvuah she'ochal licha, or even if he says I'm making a shvuah that technically it's literally translated as I will eat from you. Now this is a double negative. Lo shvuah shelo ochal lecha. Great. I'm not making a shvuah that I won't eat from you, implying that I am making a shvuah that I will eat from you. Usr. We're saying that all of these scenarios are usr. So when he says shvuah shelo ochal lecha, what he's saying is I'm swearing against ever eating from you, essentially. So ochal really means shelo ochal. So why in our Mishnah are we saying she'ochal means she'ochal, that I will eat, whereas in this brisa she'ochal means that I won't eat? So don't worry, it's not complicated. Amar Abaye, lo lam da'achilna mashma lo kasha kan b'mesavim b'lechol kan b'shem mesavim b'lechol. Abaye says, well, context is important. Okay, context is important. It depends. If his grandmother is chasing him around the house with Brussels sprouts, and he's saying, eat your Brussels sprouts, eat your Brussels sprouts, eat your Brussels sprouts, and he's saying, I'm not eating Brussels sprouts, I'm not eating Brussels sprouts, and then she keeps on insisting, eat Brussels sprouts, eat Brussels sprouts. She's chasing him around the house, she's got like a plate, and she's holding it and saying, just one more bite, till finally he says, Shvuah she'ochal Brussels sprouts. So in that case, what he's saying, when he says Shevuos she'ochal, he's saying, I'm swearing against ever eating Brussels sprouts, right? So Shevuos she'ochal in that context means I'm never going to eat Brussels sprouts, okay? But in general, if a person says, a person says, I'm making a Shevuah that I'm going to eat salad, it means that he's going to eat salad, not that he's not going to eat salad. Okay, so therefore, again, Omar Abaye says, Le'elam da'achil no mashma. Look, really, she'ochal means she'ochal. Really, she'ochal means that I will eat, generally speaking. If a person makes a shvuah, she'ochal salad, so it means that he will eat salad. So, lo kasha, kan b'mesavim b'lechol, kan b'she'em mesavim b'lechol. Depends if they're pressuring him if they're trying to force him to eat, or not. Masnis, in our Mishnah, we say she'ochal means that I will eat salad. B'she'en mesavim b'lechol. That's talking about where nobody's pressuring him. He just makes a shvuah that he's going to eat salad, so he's going to eat salad. Brisa b'mesavim b'lechol, but the brisa where he says she'ochal means shelo ochal, so that's where they're trying to, pressure him to eat. V'kamer lo achilna, v'lo achilna. He keeps on saying, I don't want it. I don't want it. D'chi ka mishtaba, hachi ka omar, shvuah shelo ochal. So eventually, when he finally says shvuah she'ochal, what he's saying is, I'm swearing that I'm making a swear that I will never ever eat Right? I'm swearing against ever eating Brussels sprouts or whatever he's being chased with. And so it depends on the context, but generally speaking, the simple explanation of she'ochal means I will eat. Rav Ashi Omar says, Rav Ashi, Tini shvua she'i ochal licha. Rav Ashi says, well, how about this? In the Brisa where it says shvua she'ochal licha, make a little change, add 2 letters, she'i ochal licha, that I won't eat from you. Then what's the big, why do we need a Brisa to teach us that if he says I'm not going to eat from you, then you can't eat from him? So ma'adetema, lishne de iskilale, well, maybe his tongue slipped. Maybe when he says e, he didn't really mean e, or maybe he didn't mean to say e, he meant to say ste'achilna, but maybe he slipped, kamash balon, that he didn't slip. Okay, so Rav Ashi wants to say e achilna lach. Okay, she'i ochala. Okay, sounds like fun. Now, moving on. Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, mivta shvua. If you say mivta, that's a shvua. So he says mivta that I'm going to eat salad. So it's the same thing as shvua, she'ochal salad. Fine. How about this? Okay, fine. Maybe let's look at stuff with. Wait, where am I? Oh, I see. Yeah, okay. Whatever. But the point is that mivta is like basically a kind of shvua. Isar shvua, and isar, not an isur, but an isar. Okay, maybe I'll just try to, because isur is also going to come up on this stuff actually like very soon. We have isur, which means like a prohibition, but there's also an isar, right? If you think kol nidre ve'esare, esare or isars. So isur and isar. I'll try to be as emphatic as possible in explaining the differences. Maybe. Okay. So an isar is a shvua. That's also okay. So a mivta is also a kind of a shvua, and isar is also a kind of shvua. Isur isar. The prohibition of an isar, imata omer isar shvua chayiv. If you say that an isar is a shvua, so then you are chayiv to bring a korban oile v'yored. Ve'im lav potter. But if you say that an isar is not a shvua, so then you are potter. The Gemara says, I don't understand. Imata omer isar shvua ve'omart isar shvua. What do you mean? This Gemara, this Brisa started out by saying mivta shvua, isar shvua. We just said an isar is a shvua, and now you're telling me if you're going to say that an isar is a shvua, so then you have to bring a korban. That's exactly what we just said. We just said an isar is a shvua. So why are you saying if you said? So Omar Abaye Ochika Omar. So Abaye says this is how to explain the Brisa. Mivta shvua. Okay, mivta is a kind of shvua. However, isar mitbis bishvua. Whereas Isar is mitpis bishvua. What does that mean? So I'm actually going to talk. Rashi explains it nicely. So I'll read Rashi. So there's a Rashi Divamasl Isar mitpis bishvua. Okay, it's about 5-6 lines to where it gets thin. Isar olai kikar zo. If a person says Isar olai kikar zo, that this loaf of bread is an Isar upon me, hareyu kimi. It's as though it would be analogous to, comparable to, shenishba ala kikar. It would be analogous to a scenario where a person makes a shvua that I am not going to eat this loaf of bread. V'chazer v'omer, and then he looks at another loaf of bread and says about that loaf of bread, al kikar acher arei zeh koze. And he says about the second loaf that it's like this other one, meaning the first loaf was a proper shvua. He says, right, I'm making a shvua that I'm not going to eat this loaf of bread. Now he looks at another bread and says, and this loaf is like that loaf. So he's not clearly expressing what he's just saying that the second loaf is like the first loaf. So, you kind of apply whatever you said to the first loaf, apply to the second loaf, but he's not explicit about the second loaf being usher to eat. So, shehitpis es hasheni barishon, that he basically applied the second one based on the first one. So he didn't make two separate Shevuos. He made one Shevuah and then kind of like I feel like it's the opposite of applied. He then kind of like made the second loaf dependent on the Shevuah from the first loaf. Is that even? I feel like I don't know. Whatever I said about the first one apply to the second one without explicitly saying what about the second one. So the shaila is, how do you relate to mitbis b'shvuah? How do you relate to a scenario where we say, and the second loaf is like the first loaf? So however you would treat that scenario, that's how you would treat an isar. Okay, so again, so Amar Abaye says, Abaye, Hachi Karma, this is how to understand the Braise, Mivta Shvuah. Okay, Mivta is just a proper Shvuah. However, when it comes to Isar, Mitbis B'Shvuah, we treat Isar as the equivalent of being Mitbis B'Shvuah. Isar, so now in terms of what is the prohibition of an Isar, Im ata omer mitbis b'shvuah ki motzi shvuah mipiv dami chayiv. Well, that depends on how you treat mitbis b'shvuah. If you treat mitbis b'shvuah as ki motzi shvuah mipiv, just as if you treat the second loaf, right, as the first loaf, right? If you treat mitbis b'shvuah, right, in our example, the second loaf that he said, it's like the first loaf. So if you would treat that the same exact way as you treat the first loaf, right, as if you said the shvuah explicitly, well then of course you would bring a korban olav yored if you accidentally ate it. Ve'im lav potter. But if you don't treat it like as if like a proper shvuah, well then potter, then you'd be potter from bringing a korban shvuah. Okay, now frek the Gemara. How do we know all this info? How do we know that Mivta is a Shvuah? How do we know that Isar is Mitbis b'Shvuah? So Mimayde Mivta Shvuah. So how do we know firstly that Mivta is a Shvuah? Dichsiv, as the Pasuk says, Oy nefesh ki si shava levate bisfasai. So you see what we did over there? The pasuk says, "O nefesh ki si shava livate." You have the juxtaposition of tishava, shvuah, and livate, mivta. Isar nami dichsiv. Yeah, but if that's the case, you have the same thing by an isar, as it says, "Kol neder v'chol shvuas isar." So you have isar and shvuah juxtaposed. So I would say that isar is just as much of a shvuah as Mivta. So Ella Mimai de Isar mitbis b'shvuahu. So how do we know that Isar is mitbis b'shvuah? It's like the application of one shvuah to another one. Dichsiv, as the pasuk says, O Asra Isar al nafsha b'shvuah. There it says Asra Isar, which is of course Isar, al nafsha b'shvuah, implying like there was already an existing shvuah, the first loaf, and then you made an Isar by applying that to a second loaf. So basically, Isar is dependent on there being a first shvuah, an initial shvuah, so therefore it's mitbis b'shvuah. However, mifta nami oksiv, but also we have a similar what's the word I'm thinking of? A similar construct. I feel like that's not the word that I'm template. Maybe. When it comes to Mivta as well, as the Hoksiv, it says in the Pasuk, L'chol asher yivate ha'adam b'shvuah. So there also, I'll say that Mivta is dependent on there being a shvuah there already, i.e., I'll argue that Mivta is also mitbis b'shvuah. Ella, Omar Abai rather says Abai, however, when it comes to Mivta, shvuah mehacha. We know that Mivta is a shvuah as opposed to mitbis b'shvuah because from here, v'im hayoy siye leish undareh aleh o mivtas vaseh asher asher al nafsha, or her mivtas that she made asher on herself, ve'ilu shvuah loy ka'amar, and it doesn't say anything about shvuahs in that pasuk, meaning that mivta. So how did it become asher if there was no shvuah there? From the mivta is how it become asr, i.e. mivta is a shvuah in its own right. However, isar, according to Abai, is always going to have to be dependent on an existing shvuah, i.e. mitpis be shvuah. Right, so b'mai asr atzma be mivta. Okay, so therefore we say that pasuk by mivta, right? L'chol asher yivate or mivtas vaseh asher also al nafsha, and it doesn't say anything about shvuah over there. Okay, fine. So therefore, Abai says that mivta is a shvuah, and Isar is mitpis b'shvuah. Rav Omar says, Rav l'olam emelach mitpis b'shvuah lav kimotz v'shvuah mipiv dami. Rav, however, has no qualms. Does that make sense? Has no doubt that when it comes to mitpis b'shvuah, it's not kimotzi shvuah mipiv dami. And therefore, in the scenario where he makes a shvuah about one loaf of bread, and then about the other loaf of bread, he says, this is like the first one. If you accidentally eat the second one, you're not going to have to bring a korban all of yard, because mitpis b'shvuah is lab kimotzi shvuah mipiv dami, according to Rav. This is how Rav explains the braise. Mivta shvuah isanami shvuah. That mivta is a shvuah, but guess what? Isar is ochit, a shvuah. Osrei the Isar. Now, when it comes to the Isur of an Isar, hitilo akosev bein neder l'shvuah. If you look at the pasuk that we're going to quote in a minute, an Isar is actually sandwiched between a neder and a shvuah. Between a neder and a shvuah, which means that it's kind of a chameleon. That the Isar is dependent on how you phrase it. Hotziu b'lashon neder, if you phrase it as a neder, b'lashon shvuah, shvuah. But if you phrase it as a shvuah, it's a shvuah. There's a Rashi that I'm tempted to read. It's just a little bit of a long Rashi. Whatever. No, I'm not going to read the Rashi. But basically, if you phrase the Isar as a neder, I'll just find that in the Rashi. So, okay, fine. So if you make it a neder, so for example, if he says, Isar kikar zo alai. Right? Isar kikar zo alai. It doesn't say anything about eating it or whatever. It just says, Isar kikar zo alai. It's basically like a neder. It's like right? It's like konam kikar zo alai. Right? So he says, Isar kikar zo alai. So then we'll treat it like a neder, which means if he accidentally eats it, he will not bring a korban olev yard. However, if what he said was kigon isar shelo ochal kikar zeh, similar to like if it says shvuah shelo ochal kikar zeh, he says isar shelo ochal kikar zeh. Well, then we treat it like a shvuah, and if he accidentally eats it, so then he will bring a korban olev yard. So Rav says that when it comes to isar, because it's sandwiched in the pasuk that we're about to read between neder and shvuah, it simply depends how you phrase the Isar. If you phrase it like a neder, then we treat it like a neder and there's no korban olev yard. If you phrase it like a shvuah, so we treat it like a shvuah and there is a korban olev yard if you violate it by accident. Now, so tell me about this pasuk where Isar is sandwiched. Ve'im beis isha nadara o asra Isar al nafsha b'shvuah. So you see neder, Isar, and shvuah, Isar being in the middle. So we saw be'etzim that Abaye suggests that mitbis b'shvuah could be treated like kimotzi shvuah mipiv and have a chiyuv korban olav yored, whereas Rava says no. So the Tamayu, they're consistent with their reasoning, the Itmar, because it said it mitbis b'shvuah when it comes to being mitbis b'shvuah. Abaye Omer kimotzi shvuah mipiv dami. Abaye says it's like he's motzi shvuah mipiv, and you would be chayiv korban olav yored potentially if you violate it by accident. Rava Omer lab kimotzi shvuah mipiv dami, whereas Rava says that mitbis b'shvuah is not kimotzi shvuah mipiv dami. Now, we quote a brisa. This brisa is it needs some massaging. We're basically gonna try explaining the brisa according to Abaye and according to Rava. I think Itaka makes more sense according to Rava. Abaye is a little bit tricky, I think, but Akoponim, here we go. So Meisra, we have a contradiction. Ezu Isar ha'omer batera. Tell me about this Isar. Ha'omer. If a person says, I'm not going to eat meat, I'm not going to drink wine, Ki yom shemeis bo aviv. Just like on the day that my father died. On the day that my father died, I made a neder that on this day, on the yahrzeit, I'm never going to eat meat anymore on the yahrzeit. I'm never going to drink wine anymore on the yahrzeit. Ki yom shemeis bo ploni. Or he says similar, right? He has a similar situation for the day that, I don't know, so-and-so died. Maybe a friend of his died or something, and he made such a neder. Ki yom shenereg bo Gedalia ben Achikom. Som Gedalia. Right? Of course, I've mentioned before the Maisa from my great-grandfather, who I'm talking named after. Right? He said, right, he didn't fast, and Som Gedalia. He says, Gedalia didn't fast for me. Akoponim. So he says, right, that I'm not going to eat meat or drink wine like I made a neder on Tzom Gedalia. We're going to get to that soon. Like I thought he already doesn't. It's already a fast day. But anyways, Yom Shira Yerushalayim Bechorbana. I assume that's probably a reference to Tisha B'Av, right? Like I made a neder not to eat meat or drink wine on Tisha B'Av. Osir. So we say that is Osir. But Shmuel v'udenoder uva me'oso hayom. And says Shmuel that this applies only if he in fact had made a neder from, let's say, the day that his father died, and there was already neder, an active neder from that day, and now basically you're extending that neder. Now it's a little bit tricky because, I mean, he phrased it really as a Shevuos. He says, I'm not going to eat, so that sounds kind of like a Shevuah, but also he's talking about an Isar. I think the Brisa makes a little bit more sense the way that Rava actually explains it. But anyways, first we say, Bishlam ala Abaye. So I understand according to Abaye, even though I don't really understand. I have questions on the Brisa if we understand according to Abaye. But anyways, fine. We start off by saying, Bishlam ala Abaye. I understand according to Abaye, dematbis beneder neder, matbis b'shvuah shvuah. So basically what we want to say is we want to explain according to Abaye that what this Brisa is talking about is being matbis beneder, right? Because he's saying basically, well, I have this, the day that my father died, right? That I don't eat meat and drink wine on that day, and then he applies it, and just like on that day, I'm also not, going to eat meat or drink wine ever again. He's basing it based on the initial neder they made, so it's matbis ben neder, and therefore, just like you can be matbis ben neder, so Abaye says also you can be matbis b'shvuah. Fine. And therefore, just like being matbis ben neder is a neder, and being matbis b'shvuah is a shvuah. Okay. But El Rava Kash, but I don't understand according to Rava, because we want to argue that what this Brisa is doing is being matbis, essentially making the argument that matbis b'shvuah is treated like a shvuah, whereas Rava says that it's not treated like a proper shvuah. But El Rava Kash, or Amalecha Rava, so Rava is actually going to explain the Brisa his own way, which I think is much easier to explain. Tritz ve'ema'achi answer like this: Ezu isur. Not Isar, but Ezu Isur Neder Amr Bator. What this Brisa is saying, this Brisa is actually not coming to explain an Isar, but coming to explain in the Isur Neder. This Brisa is giving an explanation of what a Neder actually is. What is the construct of a Neder? The template of a Neder. Ezu Isur Neder. What is the prohibition of a Neder? I'll tell you. Ha'omer b'Torah, that's in the Torah. Ha'omer, if a person says, Harei olai shelo ochal basu v'shlo eshte yayin. If he says, I'm not going to eat meat or drink wine, ki yom shemeis bo aviv, like I don't eat meat or drink wine on the day that my father died, ki yom shenereg bo ploni, or that so-and-so was killed, va'omer Shmuel, and Shmuel says, v'shenoder uva mei oso hayom. And that is so long as he already, that the neder is in fact in place already, from that day, the day that his father died, or that the other person died, or whatever. So, according to Rava, what the Brisa is saying is, what is the frame, the template for a neder? And what it's saying is that, actually, says this Brisa, a neder is only a valid neder if it is dependent on an existing neder. A neder must be dependent on an already existent neder. My time, how come? Amar Kokus, the pasuk says, Ish ki yidor neder lashem ache yidor bedover anodur. Okay, you have to make a neder on something that is already nedered. Okay, I mean, we don't seem to paskin this way, and I don't remember this from Nidarim. But anyways, that seems to be what this Brisa is saying. It's saying that the template for a neder is that it must be dependent on an existing neder. But it's not teaching anything about mitbiz b'shvuah k'shvuah. Okay? Now, frag the Gemara, yom shemeiz bo aviv pshita. If he says that I'm not going to eat meat anymore, just like I don't eat meat on the day that my father died, so I mean, obviously that is valid. 1 second. Okay, fine. Okay. So, wait 1 second, another vow. Okay, fine. So, okay, fine. So, pshita kiyom shenerag bo Gedalia ben Achikom itztuchle. Well, it was, so yeah, it's not a big chiddush about the day that his father died, but the chiddush is the day when he does it based on Tzom Gedalia, because Sagadati Chamina may have thought to say that even if he wouldn't have made a neder to refrain from eating meat and drinking wine on Tzom Gedalia, Nami Osir, it was already Osir anyways, because it's a fast day, so Kinoder Nami La'abele Isur. So therefore when you make your neder dependent on the neder that you made on Tzom Gedalia, it wouldn't work because it's not really a valid neder. Bahai lo mitpiz beneder hu, and it wouldn't be tofes. So kamash malon. So therefore, kamash malon that it works. Okay, fine. Rabbi Yochanan also agrees with Rava that in Isar is basically dependent on how it's framed. T'chiyasa Ravin, when Ravin came, he said the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Mivta lo ochal lecha, Isar lo ochal lecha, Shevuos. That both of you say, whether you say Mivta lo ochal lecha or Isar lo ochal lecha, it's just treated as a Shevuos, right? That essentially when you phrase an Isar as a Shevuos, so then it is treated like a Shevuos. Kiyasar of Dimi, Rabbi Yochanan. So now we're getting into a new thing that I think is going to continue on to, it's going to continue on to tomorrow's daf as well. So, Kiyasar Rav Dimi Amar Rav Yochanan. When Rav Dimi came, he said in the name of Rav Yochanan, Ochal v'lo ochal sheker, v'azrasa mi'ochal lo sishav b'shmila sheker, achat v'lo achalti shav, v'azrasa mi'ochal lo sisa Hashem Hashem lekecha lo shav, konamos of v'lo yochal dvaro. Says Rav Yochanan, there are concepts in the Torah of a Shevuos sheker, a Shevuos shav. So Rabbi Yochanan is coming to say, what's a Shevuos sheker? Ochal v'lo ochal. If you say, I'm going to eat salad today, and you don't eat salad that day. So that's a Shevuos sheker. You lied. You said you were going to eat salad. You didn't eat salad. And a Shevuos shav is you say, I ate salad, but you actually didn't eat salad. That is a Shevuos shav. Okay? So again, Kiyosar Rav Dimi Amar Rav Yochanan, Ochal v'lo ochal, right? When he violates a future Shevuah of I will eat salad, I won't eat salad, and he violates it, sheker, that is a Shevuos sheker. He lied. Bazros me'ochen, if you're going to give makis for it, the warning would be lo sishavu b'shmi sheker, that you're going to be in violation of lo sishavu b'shmi la sheker. Achalti v'lo achalti, past tense, shav. That's a Shevuos shav. V'azaros mi'acha lo sisa es shem Hashem lekech shav. And if you're going to warn the guy, you're going to warn him, you're going to be in violation of lo sisa es shem Hashem lekech shav. Konamos of b'lo yochel devaro. And if you say salad is osur to me, and you then eat salad, so then you are in violation of the pasuk of lo yochel dvarai. Meisvei. We have a contradiction. Shav v'sheker echodein. Param. We have a brisa which says that shav and sheker are one. My love. Midishav l'shaver, av sheker nam l'shaver. So we want to say what this means that they're one is that just like shav is past tense, so sheker is also past tense, not future tense. Achalti v'lo achalti sheker, which means that achalti v'lo achalti is sheker and it is not shav. Okay? Midi area, akadisa v'akadisa. We say no. We can keep them separate. No. They keep them, no. Shav, achat v'achat is shav. Ochav lo ochal is sheker. Humay davar echad hein. So what does it mean that it is one davar? The bedibur echad nemru means that they were said at once. Kintan is learned by Zocher v'Shomer bedibur echad nemru. That by Shabbos, Shomer v'Zocher bedibur echad. They were said tzazam. They were said at the same exact time. Hasha'ein hapeh yochol ledaber, which is something that a mouth is unable to speak. You can't say Shomer and Zocher at the same time. And also, you can't hear Shomer and Zocher at the same time, which is why I wear noise-canceling headphones, because if I'm recording Babylon Talmud and I need to hear what I'm saying, I can't also be hearing the sunflower people outside in the park. So that's why I wear noise-canceling headphones, because you can't hear two things at once. So Shomer and Zocher were said Tzazamen, and what does it mean that Shav and Sheker are Davar Echad Hein? It means that they were also said Dibur Echad Hein, that they were said Tzazamen. To which the Gemara says, not convinced. I understand what it means that Shomer and Zocher are Dibur Echad, and why that's significant, as we're about to explain. Why is it so significant that Shav and Sheker Shav and Sheker had to be said at the exact same time? I understand why the significance of Shomer v'Zocher b'dibur echad nemru. Kidur of Adabar Hava, Domer of Adabar Hava, Noshim chayavos b'kiddush hayom dvar teireh. That women are chayavos on Friday night, on well, I don't know necessarily Friday night, but on Shabbos, dvar mida oraisa. I assume that's Friday night and Shabbos day. Why not? I assume it's both. Nashim chayavos b'kiddush hayom. If anything, maybe it's even Davka Shabbos day even. I think it's a question for Arvei Psochim. I think. Where is this from? This is Gemara in Brachos, Davka. Davka Gemara in Brachos. So maybe it's a shayla for Gemara in Brachos. Akoponim. So Nashim chayavos b'kiddush hayom dvar Torah. The Amar Kakas, the Pasuk says Zocher v'Shomer. It says Zocher v'Shomer. Kol yeshnu b'shmira yeshnu b'zchira. So normally we would say mitzvahs esei shezman grama nashim peturos. Normally I would say a time-bound mitzvah like doing kiddush on Shabbos. So nashim would be peturos. However, Zocher and Shomer were said tzazamin, and we learn kol yeshnu b'shmira. Anybody who is chayiv in shmiras Shabbos, right, and when it comes to mitzvahs loci, say women have a chiyuv for all mitzvahs loci, say, and therefore if the chayavos in shmiras Shabbos and ochit, they are chayavos in zechiras Shabbos. Yeshnu b'zechira v'aninosho v'esnu b'shmira isnu nami b'zechira. So therefore women are chayavos in making kiddush in zocher yom Shabbos l'kacho, and therefore zachrei alayayin. So therefore, I understand why Shomer v'Zocher had to be said tzazamen. Ela hacha lemai hilchsa mibayle. But why did Shevuos Shav and Shevuos Sheker have to be said tzazamen? Ela kishem sheloke al Shav kach loke nami al Sheker. Rather, it doesn't mean that they were said together. Rather, what it means is just like you get makis for a Shevuos Shav, you also get makis for a Shevuos Sheker. Klapilai, wait, I don't understand where this is backwards. Right? If anything, by Shevuos Sheker, ochal v'lo ochal. So if he says that lo ochal, I'm not going to eat salad, v'ochel, but he then eats salad, which is a lav sheyesh bo maise. He did something, so I understand why lo ochal v'achal, and he actually ate it. He would be chayiv makis. I get that, but why are we saying that? Just like you chayiv makis for Shevuos Shav, which we're saying is past tense, which is achalti v'lo achalti, where he's not doing anything. He lied verbally. He lied. That's lav she'ein bo ma'aseh. So it's not obvious that he should be chayiv makis for that. So why are we saying that just like it's chayiv makis for Shevuos Shav, he's also chayiv makis for Shevuos Sheker? It's backwards. Right. So Ella rather. Ema al say kshim shaloka al sheker kach loke al shav. Rather, I'll say fakir. that just like you're chayev by Shevuos sheker, when it's a lav sheyesh bo ma'aseh, you say I won't eat salad, and then you violate the Shevuah by eating salad, you'll get makas for that. You also get makas for Shevuos Shav, as we're going to learn on tomorrow's daf, because it says by Shav, ki lo yinake Hashem eis asher yisa shmo lashav. Right? Is that the correct? Yes. So it says ki lo yinake Hashem won't forgive you, but Bezdin can give you makas, and you can get forgiveness that way. Anyway, so we say that just like by Shevuos Sheker there's makas, also by Shevuos Shav there's makas. Pshita tzavis, high lav. No, if that's no, so we proved okay. Shevuos Sheker is a lav sheish b'maaseh, and Shevuos Shav we learn that from the drash of Ki lo yinake Hashem, which means that, but we can give you makas. Okay, so like what's the big chiddush that we have to say that they're one? So well, I may have thought that when it comes to Shevuos Shav, maybe you aren't chayiv makas, because after all, as we're going to see tomorrow, Papa responds to Abai, says maybe it means that lo yinake klal, that there's no way to get atonement at all, even through makas kamashmon kedushanilei. So no, it's saying like Abai responded, like I said, that it says lo yinake Hashem, that Hashem won't give you atonement, but Bezdin, by giving you makas, you can get atonement that way. Okay, so that's why we're saying that there's makas by Shav, to make it clear that it's like Abai says, not like Rav Papa says. V'bai same alternatively, keshem shemevi korban al sheker kach mevi korban al Shav. Alternatively, just like you bring a korban olav yored on ochal v'lo ochal lehara o lehetiv, there's a korban olav yored. So just like for ochal v'lo ochal, there's a korban olav yored. So also at Shevuos Shav, also for achalti v'lo achalti, there's also a korban olav yored if you inadvertently violated it. Rabbi Akiva, and it's like Rabbi Akiva the Omar l'sha'avar kilahaba, and it's like Rabbi Akiva. We saw right machlokas Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Shimon says that it's only lahaba. Rabbi Akiva says no, also l'sha'avar there's a korban olav yored. Meisvei Rav Akasha ezoi Shevuos Shav. What's Shevuos Shav? Nishba l'shanus l'sayadua. Shevuos Shav is when you swear, when you take an oath to change that which is known. For example, I think this is talking about, for example, if you swear that stone is gold. I mean, stone is not gold. Stone is stone, gold is gold. Shevuos Sheker, what's Shevuos Sheker? Nishba lahachlif. Shevuos Sheker is taka past tense. Shevuos Sheker is when you make a swear to change reality. Keilu, you swear that you did eat when in fact you didn't eat. So ema nishba umachlif. No, rather I'll say it's future tense. That when you make a swear, for example, I am not going to eat salad, umachlif, and then you pull a switcheroo, you then, unlike your swear, you then eat salad. So it's future tense. Okay, well, Chaver, that was daf Chaf of Masechta Shevuos. We started the third paragraph of Masechta Shevuos. Kind of like Nidarim, we kind of jumped right into Shevuos and Neders and Mitbiz b'Shvuos and all sorts of interesting things. Shevuos Sheker, Shevuos Shav. We got into Shtikol Shomer v'Zocher b'Divrei Echad Amu. So very interesting stuff. And tomorrow we're going to continue this. So enjoy. Peace out.